Now we'll continue with the showcase Excellent Science in Portugal. We have here the pleasure to have two young professors that I know several years ago. Professor João Pedro Conde from the Instituto Técnico, please take the floor.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you, Professor Barros, for the invitation. Thank you, ALLEA. So my name is João Pedro Conde, and I work in a research center called INESP Microsystems and Nanotechnologies, and I am also a professor at the Department of Bioengineering of Instituto Técnico. And Técnico is the engineering school of the University of Lisbon, and this is also the place where Professor Barros is a faculty member and Dr. Graça de Carvalho. So I was trying to think about what I should talk to you about today. This is a big responsibility since I'm the representative of the established scientists in Portugal. And so first I will start by introducing myself very briefly in the sense of what I do in my research. Then I wanted to tell you a little bit about nanotechnology. I know that not all of you are people in the hard sciences, so I want to tell you a bit about nanotechnology and then look at a few dimensions of nanotechnology, from the techniques used to the studies, topics that are studied, and show you that in Portugal we have a rich enough scientific tissue to cover these areas in a very dynamic way. And also I will convey my opinion that a bottom-up organization of a rich tissue of scientists may be more positive than some top-down decision about who can do something or another. And then I will conclude. So first let me tell you in a few seconds about what I do in my research. So in our group, we work on microsystems, and so we work on micromachines. So we do MEMS and NAMS. These are machines that could be smaller than the diameter of your hair, but have mechanical, electrical functionalities. And what is different in our research is that we do these micro machines on large surfaces such as plastic or glass. And so maybe one day we can cover the roof of this room with some active surfaces that will change the pictures according to the subject of the discussion. We also work with lab-on-a-chip systems, and here the idea is to miniaturize the chemical and biological operations to a chip level. And so maybe in the future we can do, actually in the present already, we can do multiple health analysis in a few minutes using very, very small samples of biological fluids, for example. And finally, and this is mostly in collaboration with our colleagues in the medical school and pharmacy school, we work on cell chips. So this idea here is to control the microenvironment of cells to answer biological and biomedical questions, and one of the big challenges is one day to be able to do organs, tissues, or even organisms on a chip for medical research, for example. So this is the kind of thing we do in my group. And we have talked today about infrastructures. We use quite expensive infrastructures to do very small things. So we ran a clean room, the first one that was built in Portugal, and we can microfabricate objects down to 20 nanometers in dimension. Well, of course, in Europe, everybody now has a clean room, but so do we, since '92. And we also mentioned today, Secretary of State Leonor Pereira, that we have now infrastructures. I don't know, the route, some kind of infrastructures listing in Portugal, and we are the Lisbon node of the micro nanofabrication structures in Portugal. So now for the people that are not in hardcore sciences, what is nanotechnology? And I think for me the favorite definition was put forward by Richard Feynman in '59 as something by the word, there's plenty of room at the bottom. What does this mean? It means that if we go from our macroscopic dimensions to molecular dimensions, we have about 9 to 10 orders of magnitude in dimensional scale difference. And this means that if we can control very small objects, let's say in the scale of 10 to 100 nanometers, we can make extremely complex systems that are still very small. We can make, essentially, we can make a complex world on an area that will be the diameter of our hair. Okay? Because the diameter of our hair is somewhere there. You can see a hair there. That's about 100 microns, right? Down to 1 nanometer, we have 5 orders of magnitude where we can compose more and more complex objects. Okay? So that's the room at the bottom. The fact that there's space in the length scales down to the atomic scale. Of course, the room at the bottom is also a bit different. Quantum effects are important, surface effects are important, and this is why we study the nanotechnologies. So, nanosciences and nanotechnologies are essentially the ability to study these phenomena at this scale, and then do some engineering, some technology with these objects. And now I wanted to discuss 4 directions, 1 slide per direction, regarding nanotechnology. The type of research topics that we look at in nanotechnologies, the type of instruments that we use to assemble our structures, the aspects related to fundamental to applied research, and finally talk a bit about some generational aspects about researchers. Just to tell you, on the right we have some work on unilamellar vesicles that mimic the walls of our cells, and this is the work of Professor Manuel Prieto in Técnico, and he's the Portuguese representative in Science Europe for Physics and Technology. So it's one group that works on this area. So nanoscience and nanotechnology have, in my opinion, 4 broad applications. So we are looking at nanomaterials, nanostructured products, so new materials with different properties through the control at nanoscale, electronics, optoelectronics and information communication technologies. Obviously, the objects are very small in our chips. Then lab on a chip and microchemical process engineering, so fabricate molecules in miniaturized systems, and then finally applications in nanobiotechnology and nanomedicine. And again, we cover essentially all these aspects here in Portugal. I have a work from my colleague from INL, and Irashkiman on the top. He does a new concept for neural electrodes, looking at magnetic field generated rather than currents. You can see there is and at the bottom, Nuno Santos from the Faculty of Medicine uses AFM to probe interaction between biomolecules and cells, just to give you examples of the things that we do here in Portugal. Another important aspect in nanotechnologies is how you make your nanostructures. You can either sculpt them using technologies that we learn from microelectronics, that's what we call top-down, or you can hope to have individual moduli that have the information in such a way that if you mix them and let them reach their minimum energy, they self-assemble into complicated objects. So the top one is expensive, but very well controlled. You can see an example from our lab there, a little cantilever with a magnetic sensor to detect the beating of the heart. And the bottom one is extremely promising because it has to do with the concepts of biology, but we don't have an engineering approach to it. We don't know how to design a self-assembled object without imitating biology. So the bottom example is an example from a younger scientist from the Universidade Nova, Pedro Batista, and he's using nanoparticles and genetic concepts for theranostics, so therapy and diagnostics using nanotechnologies. We also go from fundamental to applied nanotechnology. So we have, on the left side, I show you some gold nanoparticle decorated with nanorods decorated with gold nanoparticles that allow us to control the electric fields around these particles, very fundamental. On the right, we have a point-of-care MR biochip that we developed in our lab with Paulo Freitas, my colleague Paulo Freitas, and is now being, there's a well-financed startup devising biochips for use in detection of milk, diseases of cows in milk going on. So in Portugal in general we are also able to cover fundamental to applied research and development in nanotechnologies. I also wanted to mention that although the topic is relatively new, maybe 15 years, people from all generations participate in here in Portugal. So on the right, Pedro Paulo is a young researcher trying to find a job, and he works on plasmonic nanorods for fluorescence enhancement for biodiagnostics. And for example, on the left, my colleague Manuel Prieto is looking at his retirement, but still very active, working with on the concept of membranes. And my work is down there, unfortunately, getting a bit to the left side of the arrow, but we do have also intergenerational collaborations and activity in this area. A set of final comments. LX is what we sometimes call Lisbon. So I wanted to make a remark that although we have talked a lot here about competition and the E word, which I'm not going to say again, I think science and research in Europe is not a level playing field. Okay? There's fantastic difference in resources, in the industrial environment, in the organization and focus of research, so we should also be aware that it's not, although we are all very active, it's not a level playing field. Somebody mentioned that excellence brings excellence, right? I also think that money brings excellence and reputation. Okay. I think in Portugal we have this big issue that we have not been able to give opportunities for independent research to younger scientists in appropriate quantity. So we need to address this issue, increase mobility, and give people a job, and then evaluate them at the end. We have fantastic students, fantastic young researchers, and very good scientists. They not thrive here, they thrive everywhere in the world, but we are losing many of our students in particular in second cycle students, to good schools everywhere in Europe and in the world, without actually attracting correspondingly good students from Europe in particular. So this is something that makes me quite worried. The final thing I wanted to tell you is that we do see a lot of entrepreneurial activity. It's exploding, people starting companies, having fantastic ideas to transfer knowledge and know-how into products. And so we need to support this as much as possible. Okay? So I wanted to thank Academy of Sciences. The top picture is a biennial workshop on nanotechnology that we organize here. We've organized it last year and 2 years before, so in this same room, which is a fantastic room. And I want to thank you and wish you a good time in Lisbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.